My guest today is film director Cindy Lee. Now, she started out as a copywriter, and after winning almost every award for copywriting, she moved on to directing commercials, which she believes has given her an eye for detail and craft when it comes to her other love, long form. Now, in between her successful commercial directing career, Cindy wrote a short screenplay, Horn, about the horrors of rhino poaching that won at the New York Picture Start Film Festival. Now, she directed 3 episodes of Showmax's critically acclaimed first original drama, The Girl from St. Agnes, but it's Cindy's first short film, The Last Ranger, that we're going to talk about today, which has won numerous awards from many film festivals around the world and has been Oscar-Shortlisted for the 97th Academy Awards. Now, The Last Ranger is the second film in the anthology called When the World Stopped. The Last Ranger is about a young girl named Letha who is introduced to the magic of a game reserve by the last remaining ranger. They are ambushed by poachers, and in the ensuing battle to save the rhinos, Letha discovers a terrible secret. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome award-winning film director Cindy Lee and her Oscar-shortlisted short film, The Last Ranger, to the show. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to finally be here chatting to you. I've been watching all of your interviews with the rest of my team and everything else. So finally I get the nod. So yay, lovely to meet you.
You too. And I tell you what, I was surprised that you weren't on the first interview with David and Darwin and Will. But hey, I say, doing double duty for The Last Ranger doesn't hurt because we know that Oscar nomination voting starts just in a few days.
I know. Could you just say that again? I still can't get my head around it. It's so bizarre, right? It's so
Well,
exciting.
I will say this. Not only did I love The Last Ranger, out of over 150 films that I watched in 2024, it was one of less than 10 films that literally left a mark on me. A film that you can't get out of your head, a
Thank
film that
you.
is so not only remarkable, it's so memorable because it drives the point home about poaching. But my first question to you is, you wrote the award-winning screenplay called Horn about rhino poaching. What interested you to direct the short film The Last Ranger?
Well, I'm very passionate about rhinos. I mean, obviously, here we go. Those are the only two short films that I've done or been involved in. And yeah, I mean, when you live in South Africa and you're constantly surrounded by, if we're privileged enough to go on game drives and you get to see these incredible animals. So then we're very aware of what's going on in South Africa and what's happening. And when you go on game drives and you see the rhinos with their magnificent horns and you go on another game drive and suddenly they don't have the horns because they're having to dehorn them in order to protect them from being massacred. It's, you go, well, something's going on here and this isn't right and we need to do something about this.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Now, this is the first time I've heard this. Now, I understand, and I've seen, safari videos where you see these magnificent rhinos with their horns. Some of them are very long. And then, like you said, there are those that you don't see the horns. So, with some game reserves, they actually go in to remove the horn to protect
Yep.
the overall
Yep.
rhino from poachers.
Correct. That's what they're doing now. That's one of the very few things that they can do to protect them. They actually have to dart them, put them down, and then they remove the horn as close to the face as they can, obviously without doing any damage. But that's not how it's meant to be. The rhino's meant to have their horn. They need their horn. It's why they have their horn. So it's really, really sad. But unfortunately, a lot of game reserves are doing that in order to keep them alive.
So, what did you learn about the life of a ranger?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have? No,
All the
seriously.
time in the world for you.
No, it's been the most extraordinary journey, for me, because you only know so much really when you're sitting on a game vehicle watching the rhino. But when you start getting involved with making a film, and we got involved with the vet who was actually one of my brother's good friends at school, because my brother, for those who don't know, wrote the screenplay. And when David was with him, Dr. William Folds, and saw a rhino actually had its horn taken off, it was killed. And David was so emotional. He said, well, what can I do to help? And he said, well, you're a filmmaker, tell a story. So that's what he did. He wrote this beautiful screenplay. And now you just learn more and more about how much effort all the conservationists are putting in to keep the rhino alive. They're fighting a losing battle a lot of the time. Do you know that one rhino is killed every 15 hours? That's quite. If we keep talking for 15 hours, there'll be another rhino killed.
Oh
Yeah, it's quite
my,
a horrific thought. So
wow.
we needed to do something. And the power of filmmaking is so extraordinary because there are a lot of documentaries that are being made, and I'm very grateful for the documentaries out there. But when you're showing something that is so horrific and you're just talking numbers, you can only really get to a certain amount of people. But when you're telling a narrative that is so emotional and so powerful, and you get to the end of this film and people's hearts are wide open and they're so connected to the characters and to the lead character, Tundi, that when the statistics suddenly come up on the screen, your heart's so wide open that you just look and take them on and really feel something emotional. And that's just why I love storytelling so much.
Yeah, and that's what this film does. It drives the horrific um, narrative home about these rhinos, but it's not just the rhinos being killed, it's the rangers as
Yeah.
well. And how many rangers have lost their lives protecting endangered species?
Well, I don't know the number exactly. I really don't. But it's also really horrific. And if you see at the end of the film, we actually interview one of the rangers, one of the real rangers, and she tells you that it's her family and she will die it's like a whole motherly thing that happens, especially with the female rangers. These rangers it's like their family. And that's what we did with our lead character. She doesn't have any family. She doesn't have children. The rhino are her family. But I just want to say what I think is really important about this film as well is, yes, there's a lot of horrible stuff that happens, but ultimately it's very optimistic at the end. There's hope. And that was so important. I don't want people to leave going just sobbing and crying and thinking, well, it's hopeless. What are we going to do? Because it's about the fragility of life. It's about the fragility of human life, about animals, but it's also about passing on the baton to the youth and trying to get them to be more responsible for the communities they live in and for the world that they live in. And we can make a difference. We really can make a difference. And that's really what I want. I hope that's the message. That's how it impacted you more so than the horrors of the rhino poaching.
No, it did. I mean, when you see this film, ladies and gentlemen, it makes you want to act, to
Oh,
do something, to,
yeah.
I looked at it, Cindy, as not even just protecting the rhinos, but also protecting the other endangered species that we know of, especially those that people will see on safaris. Now, I understand that The Last Ranger is based on a true story, correct?
Correct. Loosely. The one, I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say without, I don't want to do too many spoilers. It's so
No, no,
tricky.
we did this in the first interview with David, Will, and Darwin, where worked very hard not to give any spoilers. So I've got that covered here.
Okay, good. Thank you. You'll just bleep me if you have to, because I get so excited about it. But, you know, I mean, it's such an emotional story. It's so hard not to get emotional. It's so hard not to give away anything. I mean, I don't know how to talk about the story and how did they do it? How did they talk about it and not give anything
Well,
away?
I will lead you into that so that way you don't have to worry about giving away any spoilers. So this film is very compelling. It's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, but you brought up the
Yeah,
point. There is this light of hope that comes through this film. But I
yeah,
noticed that it contains about 5 storylines in the film. There's the
mm,
ranger, there's Letha the young girl, there's the father,
yeah,
there's the poachers, and of
yeah,
course, the rhino. So, as a
yeah.
director, how were you able to create a story that was seamless from frame to frame?
Well, thank you for that. It's nice to know that I did. I think we all worked so closely together. Like, in a way, I'm really sorry I don't have the rest of the team here because it was such an incredible team effort bringing this film to life, from writing the story to breathing life into the characters to the casting. But yeah, so it really, as we said, it's about this little girl's journey through being a child and what the understanding and the importance of the wildlife and the community she lives in. It's about the story, the range of the ranger and how she puts her life on the line. as you mentioned earlier, it is based on a true story. The footage that you see in Lita's camera is actually Tundi. And so, yeah, so it's very emotional, but because I think, we were on the actual farm where the rhino were, we were working with the vet who actually was involved with the poaching on the actual day. Everything was so personal and everybody was so invested in making something meaningful. We didn't make a film. We didn't set out to make this film. Go, we're going to win awards. We're going to be shortlisted for an Oscar. We made this film because we want to make a difference. We want people to talk about what's going on in South Africa, to talk about what it is that needs to be done to keep this incredible animal alive. And another thing that you said that's so important is that the community is so involved. As you could see in the beginning, Lita's dad makes the little animals, the animals that she takes to sell, and that's his livelihood. And he needs the game farms in order to survive. He needs to be able to sell his craft. But because it was COVID, there was nobody there. And for me, that's almost like, well, there was nobody there because it's COVID. But if there were no rhinos, there'd be nobody there either. So you guys, you need to think about that. Without the wildlife and the animals, you don't have a living. The whole community will suffer. So we're
Well, yeah.
starting to show these films to all the communities and to all the children who live in the Eastern Cape. And it's very important that the story goes out to the youth and the people that are directly involved with keeping these animals alive.
Yeah, and you see that in this film. Now, I when I watched it, and I watched it, the guys know that I watched this film at least 3 or 4 times, and
Thank you.
and there is a very difficult dynamic between the daughter Letha and her father in this film. Of course, he is both provider, but he also comes across as a unwilling villain. Would that be a correct
Yes,
definition?
yes, thank you. Yeah, that was something I really had to concentrate on as well. There's that moment when there's a knock on the door. And there's a sigh, and he takes a very deep breath. He's not proud of what he's about to do. It's very important that you understand when watching the film, and I'm so glad you picked that up, is that this is really difficult for him. He supports his child, he supports his mother, and he has no other source of income right now. So what does he do? You know? So, and of course, it's very difficult for Lita to understand that in the beginning, to see her father as anything other than what she's now seen him as. And it's going to take a lot of healing for her to love her father again and try and understand from a child's perspective why he did what he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in a way, he was forced into it in a
Yes.
way because it was during the time because of the film. Basically states there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
There are no tourists. The
Yeah.
rangers are not getting paid. No one
Yeah.
in the area is making money, but you still have to find a way to survive. And he thought this was not only a way to survive, but this was a way to carry us through because rhino horns, well, people pay big money for that.
I mean, that's the terrifying thing is he can keep his family going for probably a year, more even, just with the one horn. And I don't want to say that out loud too much. You don't want people to go, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." But yeah, it's really, and of course, without, we don't want to get too political with the film and too heavy along those lines, but we do need more of a legislation in South Africa so that the poachers themselves are brought to trial and go to jail and stop, because if we don't stop that from happening, it's going to keep on going.
Yeah, I think one of the statistics that shock people is that 80% of the poachers are related or connected to the cartels. So it is
Yes.
the cartels. People think, oh, they're only in the drugs. Oh, no, no, no. It goes way beyond that. If there's money to be made, they will have their hand in it. But on the black market, that's where a lot of this demand is coming from. And of course, we know that rhino horns have no medicinal properties whatsoever. A lot of that folklore is still
No,
going on after decades and decades, and it's just got to stop.
and
But
the rhinos horns are only good for the rhino. It's made out of keratin, made out of nail. Come on. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing but a horn made of keratin and protein, and that is it. But I want to talk about the scene when Kosellewa engages with the
good.
poachers. And, you know, you did not hide anything from the audience. You made
Mm,
us live through the terror of that
mm,
moment, including the
yeah.
situation with the rhino. Why was it important to take the audience through the perils of protecting the rhinos, but also taking the audience into engaging with the poachers with even the possibility of death, human or animal?
I think you mentioned earlier as well about the father, and it's a very difficult story because you have to have, you don't have to have compassion for them, but you have to try and understand. I mean, when the poacher says to him, no horn, no money for your family, it's very obvious what they're all going through in order to do this. And it's quite scary for them in a way. Sometimes it's easier than other times. But especially with Kuselwa, it's really important to understand that she literally puts her body in front of any bullet to save the rhino, and she will do it. And that moment, again, without saying too much, when she hears the chainsaw turn on, and she just takes that breath and she knows now there's nothing she can do. It's too late. It's out of her hands. There's that moment of her going, there it is. That's the sound I didn't want to hear. Now there it is. And then the child arrives and she was trying to protect her. She told her to stay in the vehicle. She didn't listen. Now she's got the child out here with, I'm giving too much away, aren't I?
No, 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 because
Ah,
it's part.
so,
No, it's part of the story. But
mm,
there are areas of this film that I'm not going to, I'm not going to bring up because we don't want it.
mm,
We don't want the impact to be
yes.
lessened when people watch this. Believe me,
Mm.
Cindy, how many interviews I've done, not to give spoilers away, it
I'm
gets
sure
kind of tough.
you're better at it than I am. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
but but the sound of the chainsaw
Yeah.
still haunts me to this day. I told Darwin and Will and David, I said, I know for a fact that I've watched this film 4 times. I had to look away all 4 times because I love animals. And even though this is a film, it comes across as absolutely authentically real to the point to where it is just scary. But
Mm,
it's the sound, it's
mm.
the thought, it's the implying what is going on, and it just rips your heart out.
Yeah, but it's also on that note, which is so interesting because in the beginning, you know how hard it is. We had 4.5 days to shoot the film. We had to we were very That's also another reason we had to shoot it during COVID because the game farms were all closed. So we had access to the game farms and we had access to the rhinos. So the rhinos they had to be darted anyway. They weren't darted for us. They had to be darted. So we had 20 minutes. We had to find the rhino, we had to dart the rhino, we had to track the rhino, we had to put the rhino lying it down in the same position as the original footage twice because there were two different rhino. Then we had 20 minutes to shoot. That was it. And in the beginning, we thought, well, if we can't do this, do we make do we build a rhino? Do I make a fake rhino? And the minute we looked at the footage of the real rhino and the way that its lips move and it's breathing and its ears are twitching, and when I knew that she was going to put her hand on that rhino and its mouth was going and its nostril was flaring and it was breathing, there was no way we were going to not shoot with a real rhino. And that's where the impact as well, I think what is affecting you so deeply is when you see it with its legs up in the air and its mouth and its breathing and its nose is going, and this is this incredible living animal that is about
Well,
to possibly lose
well,
its life.
that brings up a question from me. The actress, the spectacular
Oh,
actress that played Letha, what was her thought? of standing next to a real rhino that was darted because the veterinarians have to do their normal work. So y'all were able to find that window to do this.
Yeah.
What was her reaction to stand there and put her hand on this living animal?
Extraordinary, because the night before we rehearsed it within an inch of its life. So I had cushions down in the lounge, and we had the cameraman and all of us, and we're saying, "Well, here's its head, here's its butt. You're going to walk in from the side. The camera's going to be here. I've got to do that shot." And she's going, "Okay, I got it. I got to remember. She's 11 years old. I've got to do this. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this." And okay, because I don't know if I can do it. I'm glad you can do it. And then on the day when that rhino was down, she was right there. She was. I mean, not only were we so blessed to find her and to have this extraordinary actress, because we auditioned a lot of kids, and there was one point where I'm going, I don't know if I can make this film. You didn't have her, and I don't know how to do this film. And they say stay away from stuff with children and animals. I'm going, what was it doing? I mean, I don't even know if I was going to get the animal on the day, and I don't know if I was going to get the kid. I mean, well, I don't know. But on the day, she was straight up there. Literally, when she says, I want to go to see Tundi, she went straight up to Tundi and put her hand on. Where we had our problem was with the poacher, because he couldn't do it. He had the chainsaw started, and he was just standing there frozen. And I was going, we gotta go. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't step any closer. I can't step. Just, you can do it. You can do it. Just do it. And he couldn't get the thing started. Then he couldn't get close. So that took us a couple of minutes we didn't have to get him. And then, of course, it was so emotional. I'm not sure if David told you as well, because the vet started crying. Dr. William Folds was so emotional when that rhino went down, when she was darted, because it just flooded all the memories of him being there with the actual rhino on the day. And he had to walk away. So everyone was crying. Everyone. There was not a single person not crying.
Wow. Because when I first saw the film, and I didn't know this when I watched it, I didn't know that the rhino was real. And it was only until I did the first interview on The Last Ranger till I learned that the rhino was real, and you only had 20 minutes to film all of the parts for that scene, because once the tranquilizer wears off, you got to let that rhino go do its thing.
Oh yeah, no, you move away, off you go. They take its little head ear things out, so that then they give an injection, and then they get it up, and off she goes. And if you didn't get it, you didn't get it. So, I mean, the stress of trying to find the rhino, dart the rhino, get the rhino down, do the performances, 20 minutes. So that's why the one rhino was her and her dad, and then the other rhino in the other scene on a different location with a different rhino on a different day. And they all had to look the same, the poachers. Yeah.
Wow. The magic and the miracle of filmmaking.
No, right? No,
You
we were
but
lucky and so blessed, though, to have it all go our way.
well, one of the scenes in the film that just resonated so much with me was the very powerful scene with Letha and Kuselwa, where Letha tells herself, I am big, meaning she is strong, she can handle this, she can get through this situation.
Mm.
Why was it so important for her to affirm herself like that as she was only 11 years old?
Yeah, I mean, remember where we are. First of all, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're out nowhere. There's poachers all around her. She's just bonded with a mother figure, a woman, because that's another thing I did when we were shooting. There were all those little looks between both of them, because she didn't have a mother. Kusi didn't have a daughter. They just bonded. They just spent the morning getting to know each other and having this incredible connection. And the one thing Kusi had told her when she touched her, she'd said to her, because her mom had kept saying, her gogo, you were wild. And she understood what it was like to be a little child who was too wild and too big and too over the top and too much for a gogo, And it just reminded her of herself and how important it is for a child to be able to stand their ground and to know what they want out of this world and to confront the bad things that are happening. It's especially a Black child in the Eastern Cape. that age with everything going on, she needed to stand her ground. So it wasn't just, I think, about her getting up and going, I can find my way back. I'm big. It's like something terrible has happened and I need to help. I need to be big right now and I need to do something. And that's, when the vet finds her and says, I need your help. The mantra that she was saying in her head there as well is, I'm big. I can do this. Wild is good, all these things. And it's passing on the baton. It was such an important moment between the two of them.
Yeah, I think when the audience finally gets to see this film, the general audience finally gets to see The Last Ranger. It's the sequence of scenes from the moment that Caselwa gets into trouble, from Letha getting the courage, because part of that was she went into protection mode, but she also went into I've got to do something mode.
Yeah.
And but then there it moves into the scene where Letha tells her father when she sees him holding the tranquilizer gun and she says, "You're not big."
Mm,
Basically saying you're a coward.
correct. Yeah.
And I mean, I even paused that scene just to see the look on his face
Yeah.
because it's like I'm trying to provide for my family, but I disappointed my daughter all at the same time.
Yeah. It's a big moment. It's a big moment for the audience, especially the South African audience watching that film, to understand that as hard as it is, there's got to be another way. There really, and if you don't set the example, then who will? If you say, because that's another discussion we had with the script. Do we bring the dad back? Do we ever see him again? And I kept saying no. We need to know that he goes to jail. We never see him. Is he there with the daughter when she's older at the end? Is he part of the journey going forward? No. There needs to be
Ac-
some
accountability.
correct. Yeah, there has to be. And again, also the second poacher was meant to get shot and he doesn't. He gets away. Um,
Yeah, I was really hoping he was going to get nailed.
Yeah, we got him. We did shoot him. He did also get darted, but
Oh,
he
that's
just
right. One of them did get darted. That was the fun. I actually kind of found that kind of funny in a way, but almost
yeah,
like, yeah, you got what you deserved.
yeah, of course, and unfortunately in South Africa now as well, it's got really bad, and that a lot of the anti-poachers have a shoot to kill. If they're in a situation and the poachers are shooting they will shoot to kill them. So there's just so much horror and devastation that is so unnecessary. It is all so ridiculous for something that does nothing. It has to stop,
Oh,
really.
it truly has to stop because, like you said, just the rhino species alone, the
Yeah.
numbers get lower
Mm.
every year, and I literally cannot even imagine what is Earth like if they
Without,
were all gone.
I know, I
I
know.
mean, it's devastating to think about. But then there's that ray of hope in that sequence of scenes because when
Mm,
Rob comes to the scene, he sees Tandy laying there, but he's looking at both Letha and her father,
mm.
and like you mentioned earlier, he says, "I'm going to need your help." And
Yeah.
when I saw that, it's like Rob's character. It's like I don't care how this happened because the
Mm.
critical part of this is
Is saving us
now. It's to
right now.
save Tandy.
Correct. And I think also what is so wonderful is his beautiful relationship with Kuselwa and the heartbreak and devastation. He feels so responsible. She's the only ranger that stayed. She wasn't getting paid. It's her life. It's her family. She would rather be nowhere else than sitting guard and watching these rhino. And then that happens. And then he needs to now go and save what he can and do what he can if possible. And then he also makes sure that
It's
sorry,
okay. That's okay.
but it's not all in vain. Oh, you're
Hey.
gonna have to edit that out. So I knew it was gonna happen. It was oh my God, I'm
Hey,
so
no, I mean, it's okay, but I was wondering because why did you leave the audience wondering if Rob knew that Thabo was responsible for the whole horrific situation?
no, I don't think we left the audience. I mean, I think he would have known exactly. The guy was dressed in his army fatigues, and he had the gun with him. And I mean, he knew for sure. That's why you never see the father again. That father did not get away with it. Just so you know, he's spending a very long time behind bars. So no, he never gets away with it. But right now and at that particular moment, it was, as you said, really just all about saving the rhino.
Yeah, you know, there was a little clue in the very beginning of the film that I don't know if most people will notice, but it was the father's shoes that gave him away.
Oh, was it the shoes that did it? Yeah, the
And if
army
you
boots.
yeah, and if
Yeah,
you pay attention close enough, you're going to start seeing the
yeah.
connection within this film. Uh,
And then the photograph as well. Don't know if you that as well with him. Yeah.
so now this film is multiple award winning, seen across the world at so many film festivals. Overall, what has been the audience's reactions to this film, and what are the
Mm.
most common questions that you get?
You know, I think the people that have seen it, everybody is just completely, you know what I think has been amazing is that it's so different, I think, to a lot of films that are at the festivals at the moment. Because, first of all, it's in a very strange language. I mean, isiXhosa is one of our 11 official languages, and it's not, I don't think South African films in one of the languages other than Tsotsi, you know, it's not often that you get to hear this language. It's an extremely wild place and country and very different. The landscape is different, the story is different. So I think people who see it are completely in awe of the film and the story and the performances, and because it's something they've never seen before, experienced. And I think the world is turning. I think people are more into conservation. And I think short film is a beautiful way to get a very important message across in an interesting way. And so it's been incredibly beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the amazing response that we've had to this film. And the other question was, what is the biggest question people are asking?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of different questions. I don't think there was a specific question, really. Can't remember.
Does it cause people to want to act and get involved?
It does, you know, but I think at home it's been incredibly overwhelming, and I'm so we're showing the film to a lot of different organizations and schools, and a lot of game reserves want to see the film. They want the community to be aware of the impact that it's had. People are very moved by this film. People are very, and what has moved me the most is that the people, the South African Xhosa people, say thank you for seeing us. Thank you for telling a story in our language. You know, Nelson Mandela had a beautiful quote. He said, if you speak to somebody in a language they understand, that goes to their head. But if you speak to them in their own language, that goes to their heart. And
Mm.
we've really, really done that at home. People have been so moved because of the language that it's in, and because we shoot the Eastern Cape and we show the way that how they live is how they live. You know, we found her house, we found the dad's house. That's how they live. We didn't do anything to it. That's how it is. So people are really moved that we're seeing them and we're telling our own stories in such a visceral way.
Yeah, you know, this film, it's a social impact film. Um, and the only shortlisted film that I know that is social impact out of the 15 that I can remember on the list.
Yeah,
But this one is, ladies and gentlemen, I have to keep saying it over and over again. And I've posted this over and over again.
I
It's
know.
compelling, it's heartbreaking, it's heart wrenching. But there is the ray of hope that you bring forth in this film that shows us if we act accordingly, we can save them.
Yeah, we can make a difference. Each of us can make a difference. Yeah.
So, how does it feel now that The Last Ranger is Oscar shortlisted?
Woo! You know, as I say, here's this little cluster from South Africa that's shortlisted. I'm trying so hard to be grown up and but it's very hard not to get like South African excited and to get Rhino excited. And we are yeah, we still can't believe it. I mean, I know when we finished shooting, we all said we have a very special film here. But never did we imagine we'd be sitting here talking about the fact that we are shortlisted in the best live action category for an Academy Award. I mean, it's
And it's
still
the
insane.
oh yeah, I mean, it is literally the toughest category, the toughest group of films that I've ever seen in 3 years. I mean, I was talking to a filmmaker earlier today, and I said, the thing about the Oscars is it is so unpredictable. Like
Yeah,
Variety gets it wrong every year. So I always tell filmmakers just ignore Variety because all they're going to do is cause your blood pressure to increase for no reason.
I know. I know. But you know what's so interesting for us is we never made it into we didn't even get, we didn't even qualify for a lot of those really, really big festivals. We qualified through the Pan African Film Festival. That's how we qualified. So, yes, we won at a lot of festivals, but that's our Oscar qualifying festival. So, I think it's also really interesting that we've made it to the top 15 because I think there are a lot of, I don't know if it was because it was in the language or because it was of the social impact or because of what it was. I don't know why, but it didn't appeal to a lot of those big festivals, which is another reason we are so excited and so like, what the, to be
well,
here now,
well,
out of 80 qualified films, here we are, which, as you said, the Academy are unpredictable. I mean, they vote on a different level. They look at films for different reasons. They don't have a reason that the film has to show. Now the film has qualified. It doesn't matter who the audiences are. That's not why they vote for the film. They vote for the film because of the film. And that's what we realized by getting through. It didn't matter which festivals we won at. It didn't matter the acclaim that's come with our film. They looked at our film and thought, well, we are worthy of a place in the top 15. And I am eternally grateful for that.
yeah, I think a lot of the film festivals, I'm not mentioning any names, but they seem to have a little bit of a snooty attitude
Yeah,
that,
thank you for saying
like,
that.
we all know there are films that are accepted into a prestigious film festival, but then they don't make the other one.
Yeah.
And then you see a film make it to Cannes and you're like, why did they make it? And so, you know, and you just wonder, but I guess film,
What's the agenda?
it's in the
Yeah.
eye of the beholder.
It is absolutely, absolutely. And also, we don't have any big names attached. We don't have any big EPs on board. I mean, John Powell. We can mention John
Oh
Powell.
yeah,
What
John Powell did it. What
right?
a music score.
I must honestly, and less is more in this film. I've always been the kind of director where I don't rely on music to, your film has to work without music. But when there's a bit of music, a splatter here and there, and the sound design, and it just elevates the film to another level, and it does it so quietly and it does it so evoked, but not like music from the beginning to end. He weaves it in and out. He's like it's so clever. I mean, yeah. So John, we can mention John Powell. Thank you,
Oh
John.
yeah, yeah. We talked about John in the last interview, but
Yeah,
also too,
the
wow, the Tandy Choir.
Thunder Choir. Yes, they were extraordinary. And again, we showed this film in Khayelitsha, which is a township in the Western Cape in South Africa. And the whole choir was there watching the film, and they were singing in the beginning of the film, they were singing at the end of the film, and it was so incredibly emotional to see them react to their voice on our story on a platform this big, and how they worked so beautifully with a talent like John Powell, and they've never done anything like this before. And the guidance that he gave them and how much they gave back. I mean, on every level, everybody has just brought so much to this film. I am so grateful.
Yeah, what an incredible film. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you something that you need to know. And I have friends that have been on African safaris. There are do's and there are don'ts. And since this film is so compelling and it shows what really happens on these game reserves in Africa, if you ever have the opportunity to go on a safari, there's things you need not to do. If you take a picture, make sure that your phone is not geotagging those photos, because that is a way for poachers to find out where these animals are. If you're going to post the photos, don't tell anybody the name of the game reserve. Just say you went on a safari and leave it at that. Okay? Because these poachers, they go online on social media and they are
Yeah,
looking, because that is a way that they hunt when
yeah,
before they go out to these game reserves. So do your part. Don't geotag your photos and don't tell what your location is when it comes to the safari. So if that's what you can do, then at least do that. But at the same time, find an organization that maybe you can donate to not only support the rangers in these game reserves, but to offer future
mm,
protection of these endangered species. But again, ladies and gentlemen, The Last Ranger,
thank
again
you.
and again,
Thank
incredibly compelling, moving, heart-stopping, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching short film for a reason, with a ray of hope. It
oh,
teaches us many things about life. We have been called to steward, amplify, and enjoy creation on earth. And we've been the keepers of the gate since the days of Adam and Eve, but we've left the gate open to poachers. The Last Ranger is a multi-award winning film and Oscar shortlisted for a very good reason. The most important element of this film is that it reaches to the very depths of your soul and shows you again how precious life is, both animal and human. For example, rhinos are facing extinction, with about 16,800 white rhinos and 6,400 black rhinos left in the world. But there are only two northern white rhinos remaining, and they're both the same sex. Now, poaching in South Africa rose by 900% between 2009 and 2013, and 1,349 rhinos were killed that year, and they were placed on the endangered species list. Average one rhino is poached every day. Just like Cindy said, every 15 hours. But over a 10-year period, 1,000 rangers have lost their lives protecting them. Look, if we don't stop the poaching of rhinos and other endangered species, we could be looking at the last ranger for real, and even the last of creation. Cindy, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your side of the story of the last ranger, and
yes,
much success to
thank you.
you and David and Darwin and Will and the rest of the team of The Last Ranger, because just in a couple of weeks, we're going to find out who gets nominated.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My God, I can't believe I haven't cried throughout this interview. You're terrible. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Well, you are welcome, Cindy. And I literally, all of you have an open invitation to come back, because I cannot wait to see what new films are in the making from all of you, either from individual projects or even together. But again, I'm going to be sitting there with the rest of them on January the 17th when the Oscar nominations are announced, and my fingers are crossed and my prayers going up to see what happens. But
Thank you.
what an incredible journey this has been so far. But again, ladies and gentlemen, when you get the opportunity to see The Last Ranger, it's not just the story. This is a film that is going to resonate for years to come, which is extremely rare for a short film. And I've only seen in the last 3 years one short film that still resonates with the public and getting its message across. The Last Ranger falls in to this very rare category. So when it's available to you to watch, we will let you know. And when you do, be prepared because you haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I
Thank
want to
you.
thank all of you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And as for me, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.